Welcome to First But Last, brought to you by the Wyoming Humanities. I am your host, Emmy DeGrappa. Wyoming is called the Equality State because we were the first to give women the right to vote. 150 years later, we wonder what Wyoming women think about the progress toward equality now. Let's find out, and thank you for listening. In this First But Last episode, we are talking with Brook Kaufman. She is Chief Executive Officer of Casper Area Visitor and Convention Bureau. She is also on the Natrona County Board of County Commissioners. Brook grew up in Nebraska, but has made Casper, Wyoming her home. Brook is an experienced marketing, consulting, and strategic planner. Today, meet Brook Kaufman. Hi, Brook.
Emmy, thank you so much. What a fun introduction. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. I think because you've made Casper, Wyoming your home, I want to know what your journey was to Wyoming.
So messy.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I lived in Denver before I moved to Casper, and it was right around the time of 9/11, and I was working for a .com in Golden, and then 9/11 happened and the bottom fell out of the stock market, and I think a lot of us in the tech industry were just left reeling for now what, and jobs were scarce, and it just was a really different time back then. So I actually applied for jobs in Atlanta, Toledo, and Casper, Wyoming. And if you can believe this, nobody believes me, but the best offer, like the best package and the best next steps for me in my career was the offer that I got out of Casper, Wyoming. So that's what originally brought me here.
And when did you decide that that was going to be your home, that you fell in love with Wyoming, and what intrigued you the most about Wyoming?
I was young back then. I mean, I was probably in my mid-20s, so I was really impressionable. And at the time, people just gave me so many really cool professional opportunities, and I got to shake hands with the governor and go to all these great events in our community. And so, but silly me, 5 years in, I said, okay, I can't grow here anymore. There's nothing left here for me, and went back to Denver. So fast forward 10 years, and I'm back in Casper again. But I think what I love the most about Casper and Wyoming is that there's so many opportunities to do anything you want to do here. I mean, it's wide open, and if you believe you can do it, you can, and there's people around you who will support you. So now I ride really hard and true blue and deep for the Wyoming brand, and I hope to be here forever.
Oh, well, that's good to hear, because we don't want to lose a talent like you. And especially now, you've really implanted yourself in Wyoming, becoming a Natrona County Commissioner. How and why? Why did you decide that was a career move for you?
So I have been interested in politics for a long time, and I've been really encouraging a lot of other people to be interested in politics. I think it's one way we can use our voice that we don't exercise a lot. And for years and years, I thought, well, who am I to do that? And why would they elect me? And what could I possibly bring to this? So I think I shut myself down a lot, or I just didn't have a lot of belief that could be possible for me. And then, I'm a little bit older now and a little bit wiser, and this open seat came up, and finally I was like, Brooke, if not now, when? If you're not going to be fearless, if you're not going to take a chance, if you're not going to go for this opportunity, then stop putting it in front of yourself. Like, there just comes an intersection in your life where you have to choose either I'm really going to put myself out there and really chase after something that I want to do, or you've got to just let the dream go and say, I'm going to put my energy somewhere else. So for me, it was that perfect storm and the intersection. I said, this is my time, and it's right now, and I'm going to scare the crap out of myself, and here we go. So that's exactly what I did.
I like that scared the crap out of yourself part. I guess as part of that, because we are celebrating Wyoming is the first state to give women the right to vote. And now that you are in politics in an official way, looking from the inside out, how do you view women in politics in Wyoming?
I don't know. I mean, if I view them any different than I would view them anywhere else in the world. I think it takes a lot of courage for somebody to put their name in the arena or in the ring to be considered for a position that's elected. So I don't know if that would be any different in Wyoming. I wish in Wyoming we had more women in politics, and maybe not even that, but I just wish we had more diversity. So at the municipal level, at the county level, certainly in our state legislatures. And that doesn't have to be men, women, but I think sometimes maybe certain segments of our population are underrepresented. But to me, being a female in politics probably is no different than a male, but I think our opportunities are all the same if our heart and our passion's in the right place.
That's good to hear. I mean, I think people feel like there's been a disparity in equality in Wyoming because there haven't been a lot of women traditionally in the legislature, for example. And can you think that there is a specific reason for that? Do you think it's because we are the child bearers and we don't have those opportunities to put the time in?
I can only speculate on this because I'm not married and I don't have kids, so I don't have the same level of responsibility as so many women in our state. I can only surmise, and the same. I think people who are interested in running for the state legislature, time is a real factor, and a lot of people have to work a full-time job, and it's very difficult to get down to Cheyenne for whether it's a 20-day session or a 40-day session. I mean, the way that's set up probably is a challenge for a lot of people who have to go to work or have kids or have families or things like that. So I think that's probably what causes some of the inequity of maybe what our representation is down there. But I do, and I'm inspired by the women who are down there serving. I know the opportunity is there if somebody feels like it's the right time and point in their life where that's something they want to pursue. So I think it is kind of a catch-22. It's kind of where your life is, but I know that anything is possible if that's really what you want.
Right. And I think that's interesting because based on the women that I've talked to around the state, they have that same feeling. And it's interesting because Wyoming was the first state to give women the right to vote. And so by the time it was a national movement, the national suffrage movement, women in Wyoming were already voting. They were already held that position. And so do you think it's a part of just that Western independent spirit that makes it that women in Wyoming feel like they can do what they want to do if they want to do it?
I think you have to have a streak of something in you if you live in this state. And that something could be magic or brilliance or awesome or hope or something. So as far as it relates to the right to vote, I think what I'm most proud of is that we didn't revoke the right to vote like so many states did. So I'm very proud of that. And I forgot the second half of your question.
Well, I'm just kind of saying, because we gave women the right to vote 50 years earlier, does that reflect in our state that we've already valued our women? And so maybe in your comment about if you want to do it, you can, is reflected in our state and in our equality.
I think there's something here, maybe a piece of it is giving women the right to vote so early. But I think something else happens when you move to Wyoming that's far, far bigger than giving women the right to vote. I think it's a mindset and a culture and a history and a pride of what this state stands for and the opportunity that it lends to people, and maybe a little bit of the ruggedness around the edges, but how it embraces you when you embrace it back. So I think women's right to vote 50 years earlier is certainly a factor, and I think that probably runs through a lot of us women who are in the state. But I think what I feel the most is there's this innate culture that you don't even have to talk about here, but because you live in Wyoming, like you just feel it, you taste it, you breathe it. It's just a part of who we are, and I think that's what probably empowers and encourages women when they're ready to take a leap or pioneer their own path in a way that's meaningful for them and hopefully meaningful for their communities.
Well, and I agree with that. I think my other question to you is, because we haven't had a tradition of having a lot of women hold state offices, or even right now, you're the only woman on the county commission, correct?
Yes.
So that hasn't been, a tradition in our state. So how do we inspire and mentor young women to pursue that as a career or just as a dream in their life?
What's really interesting, and I feel very passionately about that, so I hope I'm not going to sidestep the lane that we're in. I think women showing interest in other women or getting involved or giving other women the opportunity is certainly important. But I can't tell you, since my appointment to the commission, how many people have said, how did you get those men to appoint you? I'm like, that's such an interesting perspective. But what I appreciate about that is that we are in a state where men would never consider not appointing someone because they were female. So to get back to your question, I think it's men and women showing interest in the younger generation, especially women. So be interested. I do this with my staff too. We're always looking for opportunities to grow professionally. I'm like, how can I help you develop? How can I help you get to the next level? If you are interested in politics, how can I share my knowledge or facilitate connections that really propel you forward? So I think not only is it women to women, in my opinion, but it's all of us, right? It's the older generation saying, how can I give you a hand up if this is something you're really interested in?
Right. I completely agree with that. I'm going to sidestep to something else because I thought it was so interesting when I was reading your bio that you had a popular blog for women runners. And that was a passion of yours. And is that something that people know about you? Do you still run?
So there's a reason. Yes, I still run. So I'm like at 10 miles is about my max these days. The reason I don't run as much or I don't foster that community as much is because almost 4 years ago now, I fractured my hip during a half Ironman. So I had been really into the running scene and the triathlon scene and, online had been building communities all over the world of people who are running marathons and half marathons and Ironmans. And then, physically, I think when your body says we've had enough, my interest then started to move towards other things. So there's people in my past life who definitely know about the book and the podcast and the running groups online and that whole journey, and we're still very connected. But as I've moved forward, I've grown too, and now my interests are in a lot of other things. So you see me building community now where I live and maybe offline, or, I'm very interested in the political scene now too. So I think part of that's just giving myself permission to change and grow and evolve, and I think that's what we have to do as humans.
How are you going to, what do you think you're going to bring to the position as a county commissioner? Not just as a woman, but as a person with your own ideas about how Casper is going to move forward and grow and think about their future.
So I hope a little bit of this is some diversity in background and thought. So it doesn't mean male versus female, but it just means my life perspectives are different. My age is different. Obviously, I work in tourism, so it interests me to look at our infrastructure, specifically the assets that the county owns, to say, what is our opportunity, one, to continue to drive quality of life where we live, and two, how do we do this better to really use or leverage the assets that we have to drive visitation? So that was one of the things that I really talked a lot about as I was going through the appointment process, is I care a lot about our outdoor recreational assets and how we take care of them and position them and how we give people access to them. So I hope in my time here I can be a real collaborator on the commission and work with private landowners and user groups and, figure out what the visitor's looking for and how do we work together to do that even better. So that's really one of the things that I'm really interested in from a commission perspective.
Well, my last question is really about our younger generation. And one of the challenges we have in Wyoming is keeping our young people here, to stay here and to build their life here. And how can we make that better? How can we create an economy in Wyoming outside of the mineral industry that gives our young people a desire to stay here, or actually young people to move here and make their businesses here?
So I think some of that's going to be technology driven. So as the world evolves, and this too, I think we're going to see more opportunities to retain our youth just by the nature of the way people are going to do business in the future. So I think it'll be a lot easier to choose where you live or be mobile or offsite. So as those things continue to present themselves, I think that creates a real opportunity for Wyoming to retain our youth. But as somebody who's really intimately involved with the tourism economy and figuring out ways to drive quality of life, people want to live somewhere that they like to live. And if we are focused on building communities in the state that really give our younger generation access to things that they value in their lives, like I really want to live here, and then they want to work there, right? And then businesses have to be there. So there's this whole cycle of things that I think starts with the quality of life for our community, knowing who they are and what they offer to that age group. And then two, I think technology will continue to evolve that will allow more opportunities where you can work for a company anywhere, but you can choose where you live. So it's going to be exciting times as things continue to evolve.
Right. And I'm excited for you. And I'm excited to follow your journey as a county commissioner and your work at the CVB. So thank you for talking to me.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to First But Last, brought to you by the Wyoming Humanities. Please join us again next week as we continue our conversations with women from around the state. You can also find us at thinkwy.org, where we continue the conversation on our blog about the history, journey, and the challenges of Wyoming's intrepid women living in the equality state. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show and leave us a review on iTunes. Thank you for listening.